Today we have Tim McVey on the channel, and he is a world champion, was a world champion, first person to score 1 billion points in a video game, Nibbler, and he's also, he was a subject of the film Man vs. Snake, and very good film, excellent film. Check it out if you like video games, old arcade games. Check it out, it's awesome. It's on Netflix. I probably watch it about once a month, like seriously. I love it that much.
Wow, that's some dedication.
Yeah. And also, he's friends with Billy Mitchell and Walter Day and pretty much anyone involved with Twin Galaxies, the old Twin Galaxies, I should say. So, Tim, thank you for being on the channel today and willing to take on this interview. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've done in the arcade world and just a little background about yourself?
As a kid growing up, I lived in Ottumwa, Iowa, and Twin Galaxies was my local arcade. And if anybody knows about Twin Galaxies, it's Walter Day's arcade. And I don't know how Walter managed to do this back in the day. I mean, this was pre-internet time, and anytime you called somebody, it's long distance calling, and all that fun stuff. This was before cell phones and, pretty much everything that we take for granted today. But somehow he got the word out there, and gamers from all over the country, Billy Mitchell's one of them, Ben Gold, Steve Harris, a lot of famous gamers from the 80s came to Twin Galaxies arcade. And I was a local kid that just hung out at the arcade and got to see all these stars come to town, and I never thought I'd be one of them at some point in time. It's kind of fun just hanging out and seeing all these guys.
Cool. So when you lived in Ottumwa, and so how often did you go to the arcade?
Several times a week. I'd spend several hours there on Saturday and Sunday. Back in the day, it was BMX was the big thing for all of us kids. We had a local BMX track, so all of us kids kind of lived on our bikes, all the local kids. So we'd ride all over town, and between my house and the BMX track, Twin Galaxies was kind of in the middle. So we'd leave home and we'd hit Twin Galaxies, play a few games, and take off, go to the BMX track, ride for a while until we got tired, and then we go back to Twin Galaxies in the air condition, play some more games.
That's awesome. So how often would these guys come into town?
It seemed like every weekend. That's probably an exaggeration. But like in the summertime, when school was out, they were there more often than not. Walter had a big back room, and he had some mattresses laying on the floor back there. And these out-of-town kids would come into town, and they'd play games. And whenever they were tired, they'd go in the back room, flop on a mattress, go to sleep for a while, get up, play some more. So it was frequent. I mean, I can't even think of all the players to name that I saw down there. And then in the summertime, when schools was out, you'd have people that were trying to do marathons and stuff. They'd be playing for 24 hours or more, playing Joust or Defender or Stargate, stuff like that.
Awesome. So the way this interview is going to work, I do want to spend quite a bit of time talking about your legacy in Nibbler and Man vs. Snake. But I also want to spend some time talking about Billy Mitchell and the recent news. Twin Galaxy, they banned him for life and removed all of his high scores. And then Guinness, they removed all of his records as well, the Pac-Man included. When did you first meet Billy, and what kind of relationship did you have in the 80s? And then what kind of relationship do you have now?
I met him, it would have been 1983. Sometime early in the year 1983, because we went on that bus trip. If you've seen Walter's books or read them at all, he's got two big books with the scores. And the first one, the blue cover book, he talks about the U.S. national video game team and the bus trip. I was part of that along with Billy. And I'd met him before that. Billy was there fairly frequently. I was after the Life magazine photo shoot, so a lot of those guys had already been there before I even discovered the arcade. He was friendly. I mean, we talked, we chatted. I kind of aspired to be one of those guys. I got to stand there and see him play, and I saw the crowds gathering around. And I remember seeing Billy play Pac-Man to the split screen and trying to figure out how to navigate through the garbage on the right side of the screen, trying to figure out how to clear it. At that point in time, the claimed world record on Pac-Man was over 13 million. This was back in the day when Walter hadn't really figured out that people were willing to lie and cheat to become a so-called world champion. And the kid that got it, he just insisted, that he got it. And I think there was actually 2 or 3 scores that were over, what's actually possible to do. And Billy was just trying to figure out, well, how they do it. How did they get past it, you know? And they kept theorizing that if there was enough dots over on the right side, if you could eat the total correct amount of dots that would be on a board, that you somehow would advance past the board. So they kept playing blindly through all that. I remember watching him and Chris Ira do that quite a bit. Eventually, I got into the action. I took note of the patterns, and I could play with the split screen. And I just kind of lost interest in it. It was kind of neat for about 5 minutes, and I got bored with it. I'm not the most patient fellow in the world. I guess that's what drew me to Nibbler eventually, was the speed. Nibbler and Robotron were some of my games. But I remember Steve Harris was working on Popeye a lot, and Billy was spending quite a bit of time on Pac-Man trying to get through the split screen.
Nice, nice. So what's your relationship with Billy now?
We're friends. I mean, I consider us friends. He may not, after some of my more recent Facebook posts. I've shared the story. You know, it's big news. I've made some comments on it. I've seen some memes that made me laugh. I've got kind of a twisted sense of humor. If it makes me laugh, I share it, you know. And a lot of people have asked me questions, and I've gave my opinion. And, you know, I'm kind of full of those. I got quite a few of them. So I consider him a friend. He's never said anything bad to me. He's never treated me badly to my face. He's always been friendly to me and my wife. And I think he's a decent guy overall. What recently happened, I don't know how we got there, really, you know. Because I know he had skills. I saw it back in the 80s, but apparently somewhere along the line he hit a ceiling, it looks like, and maybe did something he shouldn't have. As far as today, I mean, it's not like we talk very often, but we never have. I mean, I don't know how to quantify that. I guess what I'm saying is we have each other's numbers, but we hardly ever talk. But that doesn't make him any different than any of my other friends, you know. We're all adults. We all have our own lives. We have our jobs. We have our hobbies. We have our families. And we don't get a lot of time to spend with our friends like maybe we'd like to, you know, like back when we were teenagers and early 20s when we were single and had all that free time. So we don't talk that often, but every once in a blue moon, he'll call me up and talk to me. And when we run into each other at events, you know, we talk, say hi, hang out for a little bit, maybe go grab some food or whatever. So it's still friendly.
Nice. So what was your initial reaction when the news broke, the Twin Galaxy news? Were you surprised at all? Or what was going through your mind?
Well, I guess I was following it, so when it broke, it wasn't a surprise. I caught wind of it, and I went and checked out the Donkey Kong forums and kind of seen what was going on there. Excuse me, man, I gotta get a drink or I'm gonna start coughing on you.
Sure.
It's that time of year, the sinuses and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd heard that they were questioning his scores on the Donkey Kong forum, and that they had made the decision already there to remove his score. So I went and checked it out, and I was reading through, trying to get caught up on the whole thing. And then there was a challenge over on Twin Galaxies, or dispute, however they phrased that. And I went over there, and I read through 326 pages that thing ended up at.
Wow.
But I tried to keep up with it. You know, I started at the beginning, and I probably skimmed a few things. There were some people that were just commenting that, you know, wasn't real relevant. But I tried to understand it and go through it as much as I could. So I was following it. It's kind of expected. I mean, they'd set the precedent with what they had decided to do with Todd Rogers. I think their hands were really tied. I don't know. I haven't talked to Jace. I'm friends with him, but, I mean, we haven't talked about it or discussed it at all, so I don't really know how he feels about it. But I think as a business person and to retain the credibility of the scoreboard, I think they had to do that. Todd Rogers, they felt more strongly about maybe because they found several different instances where they removed his, you know, they made the decision to remove his stuff. But they kind of drew a hard line. Any cheating whatsoever is potential lifetime ban from the site. So I kind of saw it coming. The writing was kind of on the wall. So when it actually broke, it really wasn't a surprise.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised at all either, you know, after the Todd Rogers decision. Now, you've seen the Billy Mitchell reaction to this and his quick little, like, minute and, 15-second response to this. What evidence, and air quotes, and eyewitnesses will he bring forth? What do you think his next move is, or does it even really matter?
It doesn't matter at this point, I don't think. I think the investigation, the dispute was pretty thorough. They never proved that it was Maine, but they didn't have to. You know, they think it's MAME, and oh, sorry about that. They think it's MAME, and that's probably good enough. The only thing they had to prove was that it didn't originate on an arcade hardware, because that's what the score was. Anything off of that, anything that was non-arcade hardware, it didn't matter if it was MAME or multi-board or where it came from or how it came to be. If it's not arcade hardware, couldn't be reproduced on arcade hardware, then it wasn't arcade hardware. And I seen some of his, I call him Team Billy, because he seemed to have a lot of people that were talking for him instead of him talking for himself. And they kept throwing out all different kinds of, well, maybe this happened or this is how it happened. And it's like a wild goose chase. I don't think they even really understood what the dispute really was. I mean, if you read through all the arguments, and they were mad. I know one of them was mad. I seen a comment where, well, they never proved that it was MAME. Well, they don't have to. They proved pretty much beyond a reasonable doubt that it was not arcade hardware. So at that point, it was cheating.
And I'll bring up King of Kong here in a little bit, the documentary. But kind of talking about Team Billy, if you will. What have you seen on both sides of the spectrum? Those that support Billy and those that have always kind of been against him, and kind of sense something fishy going on. So what have you seen on both sides?
There's people, Dwayne Richards one. It's no secret Dwayne is not Team Billy. I'm sure he's pretty happy with what happened. But when I say that, I don't think it was so much of a personal thing, although a lot of people would make it out to be that. All of my conversations with Dwayne were focused on he wanted the truth. Plain and simple. He wanted the truth. It wasn't about, I'm going to bring Billy Mitchell down. I want the truth. I want to know what the truth is. And there's enough stuff that's made me go, what the hell? What is the truth? So I think that's how Dwayne attacked it. But he was pretty on top of it, kind of over the top to some people. So I think people kind of read that as, he's out to get Billy, or he's out to do this, or he's out to do that. And that I'm kind of in his frame of mind. I mean, I like Billy. I consider him a friend. But if he cheated, some of his own words in the King of Kong, one of the worst things to do would be to get credit for a score you didn't do, or I don't remember the exact wording. I haven't seen King of Kong for a while, but I kind of remember saying something like that. I remember him a couple times talking about, if you really can't do it live, and then hear all his tapes are Memorex, all his high performances are Memorex. He's not done it live. And I get nerves, I've played live. I was just out in New Mexico a few weeks ago, and the nerves weren't really a factor, but I had other issues that didn't work out real well. But I get nerves. I mean, I do. But there's been enough Kong-offs, and he played at Twin Galaxies back in the day, and there's not a reason for it. If anybody should be, what I would almost say, immune to nerves, you'd think it would be Billy by now. As many public appearances he's made, as many times as he's talked in front of people, played in front of people, there shouldn't really be nerves. There shouldn't be an issue. If he's really that good, he should be able to maybe not break out a record, but at least be in the ballpark or look like it's possible. I've never seen him over 1 million points, personally. And a lot of other people said the same thing. If you look back at the Kong-off results, through all of them, his highest score is 901,900 points. Sounds like it's close to 1 million because it's within 100,000, but in that game, that's a long ways away from 1 million, and it's even farther away from the scores that were claimed. And then the one that really caught me was they were talking about the RNG, the random number generator for the blue barrels. And when they studied it, I don't remember the exact numbers. I don't have the information here in front of me, but it was something like the average performance for Robbie Lakeman and Wes Copeland and all those top players. Their average RNG was somewhere like between 40 and 50%, if I remember right. Like I said, don't quote me on these numbers. But then Billy's, when they analyzed his was over 90%. So that really suggested save states on MAME or something similar was utilized. So it's hard to dispute. He had a lot of time, and Team Billy could have put something up, and legal threats and other threats, and just it was a pretty sad defense, honestly. This whole thing, I seen that video from Midwest Gaming Classic. I was just shaking my head, laughing, going, "Really? Now now you're going to try to?" That'd be like somebody being in the court, it's up for murder, and you're just kind of laughing and blowing it off and joking about it, and then when the verdict comes down, oh, they actually convicted me? Oh, maybe I better get a lawyer and do something now. It's a little late, He had the chance to do it, and now I think personally, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just, well, what are they going to do? Ban me? I'm Billy Mitchell. And, well, surprise, they did, and now it's a big deal.
Yeah. The video was kind of surprising and, in my opinion, a little weak. So, just kind of moving on to kind of a different topic. So, what do you know about Twin Galaxies' process of, going through these disputes? And what are your opinions? Do you know anything about these third parties that they brought in on this, high case for Billy?
They didn't really bring in the third parties. I mean, it's not like they went and hired somebody. It was other people that were following along, kind of like I was, that had the technical expertise. They were sharing all the videos for other people to, freely, here, go download it. Here's the video. Go look at what we're looking at. Tell us what you think, And there were some, I don't know if I'd call them amateurs. I don't know what I'd call them. I don't know what they're qualified at. I don't know what their technical backgrounds are, but they dug into it deep enough, and they arrived all at the same conclusion. And the one that I think was really kind of the final nail was Billy himself had a tech, Carlos. I can't remember his last name, but his tech studied everything, and he was supposed to, be Team Billy, and he arrived at the conclusion that Twin Galaxies did. He said that this video could not have been made from arcade hardware. So that was kind of damning, Anybody could have analyzed it. They had the videos there, and, anybody was free to download them and dissect them and go through them frame by frame and do the same thing that Twin Galaxies was. So it was pretty transparent. I seen Joel West in particular. He commented, Twin Galaxies kept moving the goalposts. I don't think they did. I think that they were thoroughly analyzing the material, and they were looking for some kind of a signature, something in the video that they could hang their hat on and say, okay, this is arcade. Nothing else makes this. This is our signature. This is what we have to look for. So they thought they found some stuff a couple times, and then other people showed them, no, you can do this, or if you use this combination of hardware, or if you use this camera at this setting. So they kind of faltered a little bit, but they didn't give up. They were still, being thorough, doing their due diligence. And Joel West commented, well, they keep moving the goalposts because they'd find another thing. Well, that's what they found, doing the due diligence and studying the problem and trying to determine, is it real or not? So it's not like they were throwing new things at them, but as they discovered them and come across them, they were open and they were talking about it. You wouldn't get that in court. The team that's prosecuting you, whatever evidence they have, you might know when you get to court, but they're not going to sit there and months ahead of time spill their guts in a forum and give you all the information to try to come back and refute it. So if anything, I would think that the defense had a really good opportunity to come in with a good defense and refute anything Twin Galaxies found. They didn't do it. That was on Billy and his team and the people that were looking at it, and whoever his experts already has hired now, or whatever, they had their shot. I can't speak for Jace or Twin Galaxies, but I have a feeling that it's pretty much a closed case. I mean, I don't think you are that final on something where you come to your conclusion and you say, okay, this is what we came up with, this is what we've determined. We're going to take all your scores down. We're going to contact Guinness. We're going to, have them take your scores down or have them do it on their own, however that works. But they notified them anyway. I don't think Jace would have taken that step if they didn't feel really confident in the information that they had. Because nobody wants to be the guy that has to go back to Guinness and go, oops, about Billy Mitchell, we made a mistake. You got to put him back. Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
So I think they're pretty confident on what they've decided, and it from an outsider, from as much as my technical knowledge was, what I could understand of it, it looked pretty sound to me. I don't know what kind of an argument that you come up with after the fact that's going to change anything at this point. But I don't have to make those decisions.
Yeah.
Thank God.
So, Billy was actually given the opportunity to speak out during this investigation, and he was just silent. I mean, to me, that speaks volumes. He didn't really have much to say. He didn't have really anything to show for himself. So, I mean, yeah. Now, with Billy going down and Todd Rogers, do you think that there will be any other classic arcade players, their scores coming down or going through investigations?
I'm sure they're not going to stop with those two, and it's probably a good thing because there's a lot of questions about different things, different scores, different players on there. I'm not going to call anybody out, but I've got my suspicions on a few scores that I've seen. I've heard things over the years, different things. You see a score, and then you see the person play, and they're nowhere near that level, and it kind of makes you go, huh, that's interesting, And then I'm sure there are some people at Twin Galaxies that Billy puts himself out there a lot as an example. You paint a big target on yourself, eventually somebody's going to take a shot, so to speak. There's people that I'm sure other people have done that as well, that people are going to look at, maybe scrutinize a little bit more. I'm sure the whole group of us from back in the day, I'm probably included as well. Well, in fact, I know I'm included as well. I saw this hit list that was floating around on Facebook that had 10 names on it. I was number 6. Uh-huh. Supposedly, I used fake PC boards. And I'm thinking, wow, really? Because Nibbler was so popular, there's all these fake boards running around out there, right? Whatever. But it's going to question it. I've seen people say that the old guard, that all these old scores that Walter accepted should be thrown in like their own container, some kind of a put over in the corner, labeled somehow, and that whole notion kind of pisses me off a little bit, because I know my score's legit. I know what I had to go through to get it, and I don't want to be labeled a cheater or put in a corner in a group, in this labeled container of all these people that are known cheaters. And even though I'm not, I was back there in that day and, get tossed in there. It's not fair. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to a lot of people. But, yeah, I just don't see this being the end of it. I mean, there's other disputes that are open. As far as Billy went, they had a couple active disputes open for him. I don't know. A lot of people are pissing and moaning about the Pac-Man score going down. There was an open dispute on the Pac-Man score as well. I haven't looked. I'm going to assume that since he's banned and the Pac-Man score's gone, the dispute is as well. But there was currently an open Pac-Man dispute as well. And I think there was another one. Somebody was, I don't remember what the other one was. It seemed like I read there was 3 of them for Billy for some reason. So, yeah, it's not going to be the end of it. That's kind of the whole point of the dispute system. That's how Todd Rogers, the dragster score and some of the other stuff came to light. And I'm sure if they look at the scoreboard hard enough, there's other things that people are going to question.
So, how did Walter Day, back in the 80s, how did he verify scores? Especially if they're just called in. Was it just like take their word for it, or did there have to be a referee? How did that process go down?
Well, see, there really wasn't. I mean, it was the honor system is how I looked at it, I guess. I'll give you a perfect example. Me and Mike Jones were at the YMCA in Ottumwa. There was a Space App game, and we both played it, and it's just the two of us. There's no ref. There's nobody else there. Just me and him. That's it. I wrote my score down. He wrote his score down. We rode our bikes over to Twin Galaxies. We handed the note to Walter. Walter looked at it, and he looks at me. He says, "Who verified your score? Who witnessed your score?" I said, "He did." He looks at him and says, "Well, who witnessed your score?" And he goes, "He did." We could have lied our ass off and put anything down we wanted. If we both wanted to, agree to lie together, we could have put the score down and gave it to Walter. Walter entered him into the scoreboard. They were second, third at the time. They were honest scores, but we could have wrote anything down we wanted to. And maybe it was because it was me. I don't know. Walter knew me. I was local. I was always there. He saw me playing. Maybe I had, maybe he had some credibility with him at that point. I don't know how that worked. But as far as the outsides, he did have a form eventually. They tried to get photographs of the screen, which was pretty hard back in the day. Cameras weren't real good trying to get pictures of a score on a video game screen. And I see all these people on Twin Galaxies today crying about, well, if they did it before, they can do it again. Yeah, like it's that easy. Where's the video? Really? We didn't have video back then. We didn't even have a VCR in our house yet. They were prohibitively expensive back then. The first person I knew that bought a VCR, their VCR was like $2,500.
Oh, wow.
We're talking this behemoth thing that sat on top of your TV, huge, and it had rotary knobs on it to turn the channels, and there was a top-loading tape deck. And tapes back then only recorded for 1 hour. So, I pointed out in my instance, tapes were 1 hour tapes. They were like $25 a tape. So for Nibbler, it was 45 hours. So $25 times, 45 tapes. If you could find 45 tapes and you had something to record them on, you still didn't have a camera. So there is no video. Back in the day, there was really no video of any of that stuff. Any video footage you see of that was somebody that was professional that had, really had the money because they were making a living at it. Somebody was doing some kind of film work, or the local TV station came in with their cameras or something. That's the only video that really exists from that period. So eventually Walter came out with a form, and he would send it to the arcade, and the arcade owner would sign it, and he'd have two witnesses that had to see the score, and they would sign it. And if they had a photograph, they'd include the photograph if they could get a good shot of it. And that was it. It was pretty much an honor system. It was a bragging thing or a pride thing. Maybe we weren't playing for money. Nobody was making money off any of this. So I don't think Walter ever equated the fact that somebody would be willing to lie just to have the honor of, being a world champion. I don't think it crossed his mind until, Billy kind of caught Steve Sanders there, kind of forced him into the truth, which is the ultimate irony of the whole thing to me with Donkey Kong. Billy's the guy that got Steve to admit he cheated, and now here Billy is being accused of doing it himself, and he's not admitting he did it. And I'm mixed on that. If he can prove that he didn't do it, boy, that's going to be interesting if that happens. If he can't, if he actually did it, man, I wish he'd just say he did it, but I don't know. I'm not him.
Yeah, I don't think Billy's camp's done yet. That's just my opinion. I think there's more to come. Now, another question kind of about, records and settings. What are your thoughts on, for Pac-Man in particular, 5+1 versus 3+1?
I don't like it. I've questioned that for the longest time, and I'll tell you why. Okay, so when Walter started tracking scores, he used the factory's default settings. As kids, we weren't allowed to open those machines. He didn't open them for us. Walter didn't own his machines. That was a third-party partnership. Those were owned by somebody else. He split the money with the machines, with the owner of the machines and himself being the arcade. So they didn't open the machines. They didn't mess with them. Factory settings were what were used. Factory settings on Pac-Man was 3+1 lives. So that's what the record should be. So when Billy becomes, the first to do a perfect Pac-Man, and I see all this, and I start questioning, I said, why did we change to 5+1? Walter, don't do that. And the answer I got told was, well, so that nobody could score a higher score than Billy later. And I said, well, wait a minute. If you're the authority, and you're saying 3+1 is the settings, and that's the factory settings, and that's the records that you're accepting, nobody can score a higher score, right? Because you're not going to accept it. You're not going to allow it because you're the authority. So why the change? That's all I ever got. So nobody can score higher. Well, it's a theory. I don't have any proof, but I got to believe that somebody did a 3+1, and I'm pretty sure Billy or Walter or somebody knew about it. Somebody did it. Somebody knew about it. And it's hard to proclaim you did it first when there's somebody that can come back and go, look, I got VHS tape. I did it a year earlier, or whatever, where somebody could argue the point. So change the settings. You did it first because nobody's ever done it at those settings. I don't like it. I think it should be factory default.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of dispute, a lot of argument with that, the whole setting, and I really don't know what to think, but I agree with you. Factory setting is the way to go. What are your thoughts on the King of Kong documentary? Is that more of an actual documentary, or is that almost fake news?
King of Kong and Man vs. Snake are not straight documentaries. A straight documentary, at least in my opinion, my perspective, a documentary is you see something happen or you witness it to an extent, you document it. To me, that's a documentary. You don't affect the outcome. You don't change the course of what's happening by any actions yourself directly. And I know that happened in my film. I could have never got the score again if I didn't get a Nibbler machine put in my living room. I didn't find the machine. I didn't buy the machine. That was delivered to my house. That's a direct, you just manipulated it. You didn't document it. You created it. I'm sure that's my opinion. I'm not saying I'm an expert by any stretch, and I wasn't around during King of Kong, but just because the people I know that were, and everybody that I've talked to and the things I've seen, and then the experience I went through doing my doc, I got to believe they did a lot of the same kind of stuff. You can get real creative with editing as well. Todd Rogers kind of said it really well, I thought. We went to the Video Game Summit in 2008, and that was supposed to have been the end of Man vs. Snake. It's toward the beginning of the film where they show me getting the certificate for getting the world record from '84. That was originally the ending of Man vs. Snake. We'll get back to that here probably after a bit. But Todd Rogers was there, and the crowd, one of the questions he was asked was, was King of Kong real? Did they edit it a certain way to make Billy look bad, Steve look good, etc.? And Todd had a pretty good answer, I thought, for that. He says, okay, let's say I've got a script, and I give this script to 11 different directors. What do you suppose you're going to see? Do you think you're going to see 11 exactly the same films? Or do you think you're going to see each film from each director exactly what they want to show you? People are going to take the material and do with it what their vision of it is. Like my film in particular, between the footage of Dwayne and the interviews with Walter and Billy and the events and the footage here at my house and just all the stuff that was entailed in that, they had over 500 hours of raw footage that they had to go through and try to turn that into an hour-and-a-half movie. So they could have probably made more than one movie out of it. They could have made Dwayne look like the good guy and me look like an asshole if they wanted to. I'm sure there was enough footage there that would have supported that in both directions easily. So I think that the guys that do the docs, they've got an opinion on who people are and how they view them, and then also they're a filmmaker. They've got an idea of the story. They're trying to tell a story because they want people to watch it, So I think they definitely influence stuff. I think the King of Kong, even though I wasn't there, I don't know for a fact, just the knowledge that I have of the whole process, I got to believe that happened during that as well.
So what are your thoughts on Steve Wiebe now? And have you talked to him? Has there been any communication with him at this point?
See, Steve wasn't part of the old guard, and I hate saying that as in, oh, well, he's an outsider, I never knew Steve. I knew him from the King of Kong, which doesn't mean I know him at all. I met him at the Big Bang in Ottumwa in 2010, and him and Billy were like rock stars because that was, relatively, 2010 is not too far off from when the doc was done, just a couple years. So there was a lot of people that were surrounding him and asking him questions, and I don't really know Steve. I've just never spent any time with him. Not that he's a bad guy that I didn't want to, or it just never happened. So I don't really know Steve at all. I'm happy for him because in the film, you could tell that emotionally a few times he's kind of hurt, it looked like, by some of the stuff that happened to him and the way he was treated maybe. And from everything that they could provide, it looks like he was the first person to score 1 million points. So it's kind of bitter on Donkey Kong. So it's kind of bittersweet. I mean, that'd be like an Olympic athlete getting silver and standing on the podium and getting the silver medal during the ceremony at the Olympics. And then 6 years later, Sample B gets tested, the gold medalist gets stripped, and the IOC contacts you and say, oh, by the way, you're actually winner. Here's your gold medal instead of silver. Yay. You've lost your chance to have that glory. You didn't get to stand on that top step. You didn't get to see your country's flag raised and hear your anthem played. So Steve was robbed. He was robbed of that moment that should have been his. And 11 years later, I mean, it's nice to say, okay, we recognize you, but kind of late, Better late than never, I suppose, but still, I'm sure it had to be disappointing for him. I know it would have been for me.
Cool. Kind of shifting gears here. Let's talk about Nibbler. Let's talk about, your legacy and just kind of your history with Nibbler and, being the first person to score 1 billion points. So what was the initial reaction from your family, your friends, the community of Ottumwa on January 17th, 1984?
Probably not what people think. I mean, even though Twin Galaxies, to all of us that are into games now, in retrospect, looking back, seeing these docs, there's people that think it was this mega arcade, like it was Walmart sized or something. You walked in and there's just hundreds of machines, and it was just this really small, tiny arcade, and they only had 22 or 24 machines. So to put that in perspective, give you the idea of the scope of the size of the arcade. Okay, back in the 80s, arcade games were kind of frowned on, A lot of parents and community leaders looked at arcades as a bad element. You got the hooligans that hang out there, the back room, maybe there's a backroom drug dealer, something shady going on. They didn't view them as a positive light. They thought it was bad that kids would want to hang out in these dark lit rooms and pump quarters into these machines. And so some of the stuff Walter pulled off was pretty amazing in that regard. I mean, he got the city to proclaim the day Tim McVey Day. How crazy is that? You know, a lot of the cities around the country were trying to put ordinances in to limit arcades or to even shut them down or run them out of town. And here Ottumwa kind of embraced the whole craziness. The local newspaper covered it. Local TV stations covered it. He got the local politicians to proclaim it Tim McVey Day. Like he'd done the video game capital of the world, you know, months earlier, and the governor came down. It's kind of a neat thing. My mom just, I don't know how to put it into words. She's like, this is the craziest thing that's ever happened. She goes, I never expected anybody to get famous for video games, you know, and have a day named after him. The day we went downtown for Tim McVey Day, we turned the corner to the street that the arcade's on. There's this banner that goes across the street from building to building up in the air. Just a huge banner, and all you see is Tim McVey Day. Oh. And just, it put tears in my mom's eyes. You know, she was awestruck by it. She's like, wow, I can't believe the town's doing this. You know, it was a big deal. The rest of my family, I don't know. It's like, I still think I got half my family that doesn't even know about the doc yet. It's just, some of them are into video games and some aren't. I've got, you know, relatives that they live out in the country. They farm and stuff like that. And to them, video games are the farthest thing from their mind. You know, they know about it, I'm sure, at least the score and stuff like that. But it was neat. It was mixed. You know, there were some people that was really blown away and was really in awe of it, and there was other people that was like, video games, you know. And as the billion points itself, Walter Day made that into something, you know. He compared that to the I think it's Roger Bannister, the first guy to break the 4-minute mile. I'm terrible at track and field. I can remember Walter. It'll be like the guy that ran the first under 4-minute mile, or the first person to climb Everest, and he just made it sound way bigger than it was. And so he kind of created that. I mean, as far as the hype around it. Tamasaki is the guy that created the billion point quest. He came to Ottumwa, it was his idea. He done it out in Montana, his first attempt at the student union of his college. And I'm not sure, I never did ask him how he actually found Twin Galaxies or heard about Twin Galaxies, but he eventually came to Ottumwa, and Walter got a Nibbler machine, and that's how I walked upon it. I walked in, like I said, back in the day, you'd walk in, you'd see Billy and whoever. I go walking into the arcade, and there's Tamasaki playing Nibbler, and I didn't know his name was Tamasaki, and I'm like, what's this Nibbler game, and why are all these people watching him? And just, it was weird how it happened.
So you were 17 when that went down, right?
I was actually 16 when I got the record.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have any regrets after setting the world record? I know it's covered in the documentary in particular about a certain arcade machine.
Yeah. When you're 16, your world's small. You know, you don't think about stuff that happens 20 years from now because you weren't alive 20 years ago. And if you were, you know, you were a small child or something, and things haven't taken on that stature to you yet. So by the time when I started chasing the billion points, there two things were going on. I was trying to beat Tom. For some reason, I got really good at the game, surprisingly. You know, I don't know why. It's like, why do you get good at this game and not that game? I don't know. It clicked for me. So immediately, it was kind of a contest. We were pushing each other to see who could get the billion first. And then Walter, I think, contacted Rockola and put the bug in their ear, and they decided, okay, whoever gets the billion first, we'll give them a machine. It's great promotion for them, you know? And that sounded great. Oh, cool, I'll have my own arcade machine at home. Awesome. By the time you do 7 marathons on Nibbler, plus all the time it took to get good at it to where you could do the marathons, and then you finally get it, it's like, yeah, Nibbler in my bedroom. Awesome, you know? Like I said, it's not like now. You know, now my whole house is full of machines. Or, well, not necessarily arcade machines, but I've got gaming PCs and tablets, and I've even got old cell phones that don't have service, like a Windows phone that has games on it that I can't play anywhere else, and I keep it because it's another gaming device. You know, my house is all about gaming. It's gamer-centric. Well, back then it wasn't. I was into slot cars. I was into BMX. I built model car kits, different things like that, and I liked video games. I think I had a Magnavox Odyssey 2 at the time. It was my only home console at the time, and it just seemed, oh yeah, that'd be awesome, have an arcade machine at home. And then you get it there, and it's just this big thing that's in the way, you know, and you got to move stuff around it, and it's just, there, and it's just in the way. You know, it's not nearly as cool at that point. And you don't want to play the damn thing. You don't even want to turn it on. You don't want to hear it, you know. So, yeah, I got rid of it. Looking back, that was one of the dumbest things I ever did. I wish I still had it, you know. How many people can say they ever wanted a machine? And I've never seen one like it. I forgot about it to a point. Found some old Polaroids, and on my machine, the bottom of it, all the ones I've seen, and even the one I have now, it's all green. The one that Rockola sent me was black. I mean, of course we could repaint it to make it any color we wanted, but it was just neat to see the old pictures and go, wow, I've not seen one that's black, that's, you know, from the factory, that's actually black like that. So there wasn't a mark on it, there wasn't a blemish on it, you know. There would be by now, I'm sure, as many times as I've moved over the years and stuff. But yeah, the semi, the guy backs up in our driveway, a semi, a full tractor trailer backs up in our driveway with a lift gate. The guy drops the gate, drops the cab, sets it in our driveway, says, sign here. We sign for it. And he starts loading up. I said, all right, you can help us get it inside? He goes, that's not my problem. And he loaded up and left, and I'm looking at my mom, and if you watch the doc, you probably realize my mom's this little short lady. She'd come up about here on me even when I was 16, and her and I are looking at each other going, how did we get this in the house? And we walked it. We actually walked the thing, and yeah, it was crazy. Big regret, though. I wish I would have kept that machine. It would be neat to have that machine. I sold it at the time. The documentary says $50, and they're talking about being crack money or whatever. I wasn't that stupid. I mean, I wasn't the brightest kid, but I wasn't that stupid. I actually got $200 in cash, and I got $1,000 in tokens.
Wow.
$1,000 in tokens at that time seemed like I just got handed the lottery. You know, it was a bag of tokens that the arcade handed me instead of cash, and I was like, wow, $1,000. You know, I'm 16 years old. I don't even know if I've ever even had $100 at one time in my life. You know, here's 1,000 in tokens and 200 in cash. And the reason we arrived at that number was it was the arcade down the street because, you know, Walter had a Nibbler. He wasn't interested in it. And he failed to mention that he had first shot at it if he wanted it. He didn't want it because he already had one. So it's not like I stabbed him in the back and just ran off to his competitor to sell it. But so Walter's not interested. Where do you go? You don't go to the store. Nobody's going to want to buy it. You know, so you go to another arcade. Well, it was the arcade down the street. And the guy wanted to pay me completely in tokens. There was some stereo equipment that I was wanting. I was wanting a cassette deck, actually, at the time, back in the day. And there was no way I was selling it for just token value. So originally he offered me $2,000 in tokens. But I knocked it down because I wanted cash. He really didn't want cash. So we ended up kind of meeting in the middle. I took the 200 in cash and 1,000 in tokens and went and got my cassette deck for my stereo that I wanted, and I was set to go to the arcade for a while.
Nice. So talking about the documentary, what's been the response since Man vs. Snake has come out? Just in general, like in your world and the video game community, and now we're living in a digital age. What's been kind of the response since that's come out?
Crazy. As it got closer to the release date, I was almost dreading it because I go to game forums and you see some of the very best people turn into some of the very worst people when you get them behind a keyboard sometimes. And just, I know how people can be on the internet. I've dealt with trolls, I've seen them, and I was almost expecting that. Oh, look, this old fat ass, he probably lives in his mom's basement. It's the only game he ever plays. He's played Nibbler from the time he was 16 until now, and, you know, I was just ready for the very worst, you know. I was kind of bracing myself for it. I was expecting it. Haven't got it at all. It's just been absolutely overwhelmingly positive. I mean, just to the point where it blows me away. I mean, saying, oh, I'm blown away, that just sounds so cliched to say, but just unreal. If it wasn't for Facebook, I don't know what I would do because Facebook's the point of contact for a lot of them, but a lot of them, people send me messages, I can't read them. I got to use the translate function to read them. There's people all around the world that are sending me messages, and I mean, that's not an exaggeration. I didn't see that coming. When the guys were doing the editing and actually getting the disc ready for release, they put it in 10 or 12 different subtitle languages. And I thought, what a waste. Nobody reads subtitles. Why do they need all these different languages? Surprise. You know? I've had people from all corners of the world contact me. I wish I would have made a list of, as it was coming. Oh, they contacted me from Colombia. Oh, this one was from Jamaica. Oh, this one was from Italy. I wish I had a list of all the different people that contact me from the different countries because it's been really cool. Had one gentleman contact me from Colombia, the country Colombia, and I don't remember all of his message offhand, but one of the things he said was, yours was the first video game documentary I've been able to show to my students at university. So I was like, oh, you teach at a university. Okay, that's cool. I said, why was my doc the first one you were able to show to your students? And he said, because it's the first one that had proper subtitles.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of neat. I didn't see that coming. Didn't expect that at all. And still, today, almost every day I open Facebook and I've got another message, somebody, hey, I just saw your doc. That was really cool. I was so happy for you when you got the score back. It's just like, wow, people are still watching it, and they're still reaching out and contacting me about it, Netflix is the biggest reason for that. It's been on Netflix this is the second year. Once we hit September, it will have been on the service for 2 full years at that point. And I think that's the source that most people have seen it at now. So it's been cool. It's been overwhelmingly positive, beyond my wildest dreams, positive.
Awesome. Just a few more questions here, Tim. So can you explain what your body goes through when you do those marathon runs, and just all the emotion, just everything, and what you had to do to prepare your body for that?
Oh, that's kind of a tough question to answer. Some people can stay up better than others. I don't know about yourself personally, but like me, I think back to college and staying up all night cramming for a test, or getting ready for finals, or I got a project that's due and I got to stay up all night because I procrastinated and pushed it back, and now it's up against the wall and I got to get it done. And Nibbler started the all-night gaming, I guess, but I've done it a lot since then. I've went to midnight releases and got a game at midnight and played it until the sun come up, and then shut it off and went to work all day, and then came home, played it again, and then went to bed finally that night. For me, staying up 24 hours just isn't that hard as long as I'm occupied. As long as my hands are doing something or I'm talking to somebody, I can just go. And I don't know why or how, but I can just go. You don't give me anything, like if I'm just passively watching TV, like I come home after work and I'm watching TV, and I don't have my tablet or my phone, and I'm not messing with anything, doing anything, I'll sit and fall asleep in the chair within 10 minutes. And my wife's like, I don't understand how you can't stay awake for 10 minutes while I'm getting supper ready, and you fall asleep, but you can stay up for 2 days on the game. And I'm like, I don't know. To me, the marathon doesn't start until you've been playing for about 30 or 32 hours. Then it gets weird, because I've stayed up 24 hours so many times, I don't even think about it. You get up in the morning and you go to bed at night, so you stay up all night, it's morning again. Then when that morning time hits again, your normal wake-up time, it's almost like a second wind. It's like, okay, now my body's used to being awake, so it kind of wakes you up again, and you're able to go again, till you get to the second night when it's bedtime, and then it hits you like a freight train. That's usually like the 32 to 36 hour mark, and that's when it just becomes really, really difficult. Training for it, I wasn't able to do this for New Mexico, which was part of the reason my marathon was less than ideal. Normally, what I did for all my other ones, when I knew, okay, I'm going to do a marathon over Easter, or I'm going to do a marathon over Labor Day, or whatever it was, about 6 weeks out, the first thing I did was completely eliminate caffeine, totally. I don't want any caffeine from about 6 weeks out up until the marathon. That way, if I am getting tired and I want something to kind of help me, even having a soda, just grabbing a bottle of Mountain Dew with the caffeine in it, it's like, wow, I haven't had caffeine for a while. It wakes you up. But not if you're so used to it, because you're doing it all the time. So I totally cut myself off from caffeine for at least 4 to 6 weeks out, preferably 6 weeks. And then the other thing I did quite a bit of is I'd come home from work on a Friday night, if I wasn't working Saturday. I'd wait for Tina to go to bed, and then I'd start playing, like 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I'd play all night. And then the next day, if she went to work, I'd keep playing. If she was off the next day, I'd quit playing, and I'd stay up with her on Saturday. We'd go do whatever we'd normally do, and then I'd go to bed Saturday night. But I kept doing that, playing 10, 12 hours at a time, 10, 12 hours, trying to build up calluses, just get used to staying awake, staying up all night, through the darkness. And that's really it. And then as you get closer to it, like the few days before, the week to, just 2 days out, whatever, really watch what you're eating. You don't want to have Mexican the day before a marathon, for example, and then I try to have snacks around that I like. Ice, suck on ice cubes instead of drinking liquid. Keeps your mouth cool, keeps your mouth wet, but you're not intaking a lot of liquid where you have to go to the restroom. Sip on ice water, don't really, drink a lot of water. I like stuff like carrot sticks and celery sticks that you can munch on, that you got to chew a little bit, but it's just something you can grab real quick, pop in your mouth, baby carrots, short pieces of celery, stuff like that. And of course, if you watch the doc, I like mac and cheese.
Yes. So if Kraft reached out to you, would you let
That'd
them
be
use
hilarious.
your...
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if I'm a Robert Kraft fan. I'm not a New England Patriots fan, but I've always loved Kraft mac and cheese. So yeah, there's no way I could say no if they wanted to use me for something like that. That'd be crazy.
I know I've seen fans make up like boxes with you on it, and like the Man versus Snake. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's people that think that was real. What did they make? Can I get a box of this? I'm like, it wasn't real. That was Walter Day. That was his Photoshop stickers. I don't know how he did it, but yeah.
Just a couple more questions here, Tim. I want to respect your time. So why Nibbler? Why Nibbler?
Well, it's like I said earlier, it's kind of like you don't get to choose who you love necessarily. People meet and they're compatible for whatever reason. You like your girl's smile or her eyes or whatever it is. You're drawn to somebody for some reason. You don't necessarily get to choose somebody and say, oh, look, I love her. It doesn't work that way. And it's kind of how it worked for video games. I played a bunch of video games. And, people say, well, Nibbler's just a pattern game. And I said, really? Okay, all my patterns are up on the net. Go watch them. You should be able to do it too then, right? No problem. I don't know why. People I work with say, well, you're a video game god. And I'm like, no, not even close. Well, you're good at video games. No, I'm good at one. Really good at one. It just clicked. It was the speed thing. Nibbler and Robotron from the time I was a kid have been my two favorite games, and it's the speed, the intensity, and it just clicked. I don't know how else to put it other than that. I've played every game that's out there, and I'm not good at the others like I am that one. If I knew what made me good at that one and I could translate it to others, I would, but I can't.
Have you ever tried to go for any other world records or high scores? Any other games?
When I was a kid, I was good enough at Robotron that I could have. I used to go to the arcade and put up 99975, the 9,999,975, and I quit. And Walter tried to get me to marathon that, and I just laughed at him. Because Robotron only shows 8 little lives. That's all you see. I think it's 7 or 8. I think it's 8. And you don't know how many you have. So how the hell do you go to the bathroom? You might only have 9. And so unless somebody's sitting there counting how many lives you have, so you know how many you have, so you got an idea, how fast they're going to die off, how long you can stay in the restroom, stuff like that. And I just thought, nah, about the time I get 20 hours in, I got to go to the restroom or something and come back and my game's over. I'd be so mad. Nibbler's got the weird little codes once you get into the 100 lives, but at least you know how many you have. So you can be strategic. You can say, okay, I need to take a break so I don't roll my lives. I can go 20 minutes if I need to, and the game's not going to be done when I come back. Robotron was the only other one I got really good enough as far as a marathonable game that I could have played back in the day. And modern times, I've been trying to get back to that. For some reason, that one just hasn't clicked. I had a real Robotron, and I could never get over the 7 million mark. The thing had reset on me. We worked on it. We changed out all different kinds of stuff. Could never get it to be stable. I've got a J-Rock board now, and I've got a 100% scratch-built Robotron. And I've never got over 3 million on that one. I don't know what it is. I've never got back to there yet. That's one that I would like to, if I could ever get good enough to do it again. I always wanted to put 100 million up on that. That would be one that would be, I think, fun to do. Anything else I've ever played at any kind of a record level or even in the ballpark would have been a shorter game. Playing Dig Dug, or not that I'm saying I'm a Dig Dug level champion, but I mean something like that. Dig Dug or Galaga or something. Nothing's going to take 30, 40, 50 hours type of gameplay. I was never that good at Joust, and Defender had too many buttons, and so did Stargate, and I don't know. Nibbler was it.
All right, so this is kind of like the last little part of the interview. So what games are you playing right now, like currently?
This is where everybody's going to laugh because I'm working 6-day weeks, so I don't have a lot of time. So my biggest game I play right now is Clash of Clans. I'm playing it on the cell phone and the tablet. I play the crap out of Clash of Clans. And on the PC, the really funny one people are going to laugh at is I'm playing a game called Clicker Heroes. It's totally stupid. It's a time waster. There's not a lot of activity that you do. I mean, you play for a little bit and then you go away and then you come back and it's done its thing. You play for. The only reason I'm playing that is I'm messing with a friend, competing against him. He was playing it for a year before me and he kept bugging me to try it out. He got me playing it, and even though he was a year ahead of me, I caught up to him. It drove him nuts, and now we kind of got a little back and forth thing going on it. So I've been playing that. Outside of those, I built a gaming PC for Tina so we could play Diablo 3. She saw me playing Diablo 3, and she really thought it looked cool. She sat and watched me for quite a while. We got into that. We're playing the crap out of that. And those are the main ones. When I have time, I just picked up Gravel. I picked up Dirt 4 that was on sale. My biggest problem is that I got so many damn games that by the time I figure out what I want to play, I don't want to play anymore. I'm already tired of looking through all the lists. after Score Wars out in New Mexico at Meow Wolf, I've been playing Galaga. I've been screwing around. I forgot I even had it. I got it on Steam. It's like the Arcade Classic series or whatever. I got Galaga. So I've been playing quite a bit of Galaga on there thinking, if I'd been playing this a year ago, maybe I could have been in that competition. I need to start putting time into Robotron because they told me when we were out there at Score Wars that Score Wars 2020 at Meow Wolf will be Robotron. And I'd like to be invited back. I'd like to be in that competition instead of being invited to play Nibbler again. I think I'd have more fun playing Robotron. But, yeah, that's it for the moment. I mean, I play everything. I've got a Smash TV. I got a scratch-built Robotron with a J-Rock in it. I got my Nibbler, which now has a BitKit board in it, so there's extra games on it that I can play. There's an Eyes machine sitting next to my Nibbler that I want to spend some time getting good at Eyes. That was a game I always enjoyed playing. I gotta get tongue twisted. I guess I'm a Rockola fan for a lot of their titles, so it's kind of cool to me because Nibbler and Eyes are like a bookend set to me of some sort. And Robotron and Smash TV were the same way, so I got all those. And then the only other arcade cab I want to get, I had one and I traded it for the J-Rock Robotron, but I want to get a multi-peded Centipede or Millipede because I had a blast playing those. Centipede's a lot of fun. I'm nowhere even remotely thinking about being in Donald Hayes' area neighborhood, but it's still fun to play. Watching him play was just, wow, that was mind-boggling.
Cool. Could you talk a little bit about one of your other hobbies, sprint car racing?
Sprint car racing. I'm wearing Brian Brown's shirt, number 21. He's from Grain Valley, Missouri. He's my favorite local driver. He races at Knoxville, Iowa every Saturday night. Tina and I were up there last night for practice night. They had about 40 or 50 cars up there that were just hot lapping. It's kind of a nice night. A little chilly, not bad, but winter's over. It's nice to get out of the house and see the cars and hear the cars and just smell everything and just be outside, If you watch the doc, which I know you have, the sprint car stuff they talked about, my dad drove a push truck. So sprint cars back in the day, well, even now, sprint cars are a minimal, just bare necessity. Just as bare as you can get a car on the track and have it go fast and be safe. There's no transmission. There's no starter. There's no battery. It's got an in and out gearbox. So they put the car in gear. The truck gets behind it, pushes them off. They watch the gauges. The oil pressure comes up. They flip the ignition switch and roars to life, and off they go. My dad drove a push truck. So I'm a little baby, small child, and I was at the races. I'm probably thinking I said race before I said mom or dad at that point. And just the color, the sound, the smell, to me as a kid, it was just intoxicating. It was just bigger than life, It was like, kids in our generation now probably went to concerts and, different things like that, just the roar of the crowd, the sound. And I was just attracted to the speed and the color and the danger of the sport. You don't want to see anybody get hurt, but there's some wild wrecks.
The danger is always there. You're on the edge of out of control, and potentially you're on the edge of potentially losing your life. There's people that have died quite a few times over the years. It's not an attraction to me. I don't like that. I don't want to see it. I don't want to ever see it again. But the racing, when it goes right, it's almost like watching a ballet. The cars are sliding around, dancing on the edge, and so close to each other, so fast, and I love it. There's nothing else like it on earth. The first time the flagman waves the flag, tells him to pick up speed before he throws the green, I'm just getting goosebumps. Just, I got it last night, and I can't wait till tonight. Tonight's the opening race. So yeah, Knoxville, Iowa. I grew up there. My dad was always there on Saturday nights, and they say you can take the boy out of the dirt, but you can't take the dirt out of the boy. And we go every Saturday night. My wife loves it. I totally ruined her. I took her to Knoxville to see sprint cars before I took her to our local track to see the stock cars. Now we go to the local track, she sees the stock cars, and it's like, oh, is this all the faster they're going to go? And Brian Brown, she's a fanatic. Brian's a great guy. He's our favorite driver. So she loves the sport. She loves the same driver I do, so life is
awesome. So this is just kind of like a little lightning round. I'm going to say this is word association. And just the first thing that pops in your mind when I say these particular words, okay? Or names. Dwayne Richards.
Funny.
Nintendo.
Classic.
King of Kong.
Made up.
Nibbler.
Fast.
Jack in the Box. Like the restaurant.
Never seen one.
Oh, okay.
No, we don't have them here in Iowa. It's like a McDonald's, okay. I guess, to me.
Monster energy drinks.
I love the Java.
And then Missouri GameCon.
It was a blast.
Well, Tim, I want to respect your time and just want to say thank you for coming on the channel and answering my questions. It's been a blast. And is there anything else you want to share or say?
No, thanks for having me, and thanks for supporting our hobby. Thanks for keeping gaming alive and keeping people informed and keeping people interested. It's the people that make this hobby a lot of fun. It's being able to go to the events. It's being able to talk to people such as yourself. People are fans of mine. I'm fans of other people. I like watching interviews and stuff too. It's informative and it's entertaining and it's fun, and it's just part of this big old hobby. So thanks for being a part of it, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Tim, and yeah, thanks again.
You're welcome.